You ever notice how Justin Trudeau's Liberals never seem to find money to give hardworking Canadians a tax break? They say there's no cash to cut taxes, no relief for skyrocketing grocery bills, and no way to ease the burden of their escalating carbon taxes. But somehow, when it comes to throwing billions at pet projects, shady corporate handouts, and failed socialist schemes, well, the money never runs dry. To see more infuriating stories of woke Trudeau carny waste, go to exposethewaste.com. Now, a new report from the Fraser Institute exposes just how badly the Trudeau Liberals are wasting $10.7 billion this year alone on programs that don't work and never will. That's $10.7 billion in taxpayer money just flushed down the drain while regular Canadians are struggling to get by. So where is all this money going? Let's take a look at the worst of it. There's $1.5 billion that goes to the regional development agencies slush fund. These agencies are supposed to stimulate local economies, but in reality, they're just government bureaucrats handing out taxpayer dollars to businesses they think deserve it. There are 7 of these agencies spread across the country, employing nearly 2,000 bureaucrats whose job it is to support the economy by deciding who gets free money. In 2024-2025 alone, they will burn through $1.5 billion. There's zero proof that any of this actually helps businesses grow, but it sure does keep liberal-aligned companies well-fed. There's $1.7 billion in liberal media bailouts. They've been pouring nearly $2 billion into propping up legacy media that nobody watches or reads anymore. And that includes, of course, $1.4 billion straight into the CBC, which, let's be honest, has become little more than Trudeau's personal propaganda arm. There's $86.5 million for the Canadian Periodical Fund, which props up dying newspapers. $154.1 million for the Canada Media Fund, which funds diverse voices that all just parrot talking points from the Liberal government. There's $65 million for the Journalism Labor Tax Credit, basically paying journalists salaries so they can continue pushing Trudeau's agenda. And yet, despite these media bailouts, newsrooms are still closing and journalists are still losing their jobs, maybe because nobody wants to watch state-funded propaganda. There's also $600 million in electric vehicle rebates for the rich. Yes, it's true. Trudeau is using $600 million of your taxes to subsidize electric vehicle purchases for people who can already afford them. The reality, most of these subsidies go to the wealthiest 20% of households. Meanwhile, everyday Canadians are struggling to put gas in their vehicles while getting hit with a carbon tax instead. There's $340 million on the 2 billion trees scam. Trudeau promised 2 billion trees to fight climate change. Sounds nice, right? Well, surprise, surprise, his government is nowhere near hitting the target. An audit found they had only planted 2.3% of the trees promised, despite already blowing $480.5 million on the program. Where did the money go? Bureaucrats, consultants, and failed contracts, of course. There's $3.5 billion into the Canada Infrastructure Bank disaster. Trudeau created the Canada Infrastructure Bank, or CIB, in 2017, promising to, quote, build the country's economy. 7 years later, they've only completed 2 projects worth a grand total of $93.2 million out of $13.2 billion in approved investments. That means less than 1% of the money has actually gone to infrastructure, while CIB executives and bureaucrats pocket 6-figure salaries. What an absolute joke. There's $2.4 billion into the Strategic Innovation Fund corporate giveaway. This fund is supposed to drive innovation, but what it really does is pick winners and losers in the economy based on, well, probably political connections. Since 2017, it has handed out $9.5 billion to 129 projects, most of which are non-repayable, meaning corporations get free money while regular Canadians get stuck with the bill. There's the $202 million Global Innovation Clusters boondoggle. Trudeau's government set up 5 so-called innovation clusters that were supposed to add $50 billion to Canada's GDP. But even the parliamentary budget officer admitted the real number is closer to $18 billion, and that's being optimistic. Meanwhile, $2 billion has been poured into these clusters since 2018, and there's zero proof they've accomplished anything. There's the $530 million Green Municipal Fund climate grift. This fund hands out money to municipalities to supposedly support green projects, but half the money doesn't even go to projects that reduce emissions, if you care about those sorts of things, and as you know, I don't. The government has funded climate activism, diversity mentorships, and home tours of climate-friendly houses. This isn't about reducing carbon, it's about funneling money to liberal-friendly activist groups. The bottom line, Trudeau's government is just burning through your money. These 8 programs alone waste $10.7 billion this year. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Meanwhile, the Liberals tell us there's no money to lower taxes, no money to scrap the carbon tax, no money to fight inflation from driving families to food banks. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. This is why we launched exposethewaste.com. Canadians deserve to know exactly how their hard-earned money is being spent, or rather wasted. Go to exposethewaste.com to learn more.